The one with the hypnosis tape is the 18th episode of the third season of Friends. This is directed by Robbie Benson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I talk about various things. This is a pretty interesting episode for a few reasons, but mainly because we have a couple of new characters who are introduced. I won't talk about the future of these characters or what we get from them going forward, but I will, of course, mention them within the context of this episode. So things are mostly chronologically. And it starts off in Central Perk. Joey is practicing his laugh as an acting exercise. Monica joins in, really good fun. Chandler comes in, smoking a cigarette, and he has this very rare, brief bonding moment with Gunther because Gunther says he can finish the cigarette if he gives him a draw. And there's this 3 second moment of Gunther smoking Chandler's cigarette, and it's just like they're two friends bonding, and it's not something we see that often to have Gunther brought into the fold, as it were, and it's a little bit different, and I really enjoyed it. And then Rachel gives Chandler a hypnosis tape. He tries to wear it as a nicotine patch. The hypnosis part of this episode is certainly very iconic. I often say just randomly, I am a strong, confident woman, which is, of course, what is said in the hypnosis tape while Chandler is asleep. And we start to see him doing stereotypical feminine things. And, well, Joey does something to take advantage of that. I will circle back to that later on, though. Obviously, watching an episode about Chandler using hypnosis to try and get over an addiction, it hits a little differently now, knowing what we know about Matthew Perry. But certainly, it's still funny, but a little bit, well, slightly more painful than it perhaps once used to be. But it's still an interesting part of the episode. Then we get our first new character introduced, and this is, of course, the very, very wealthy Pete Becker, played by Jon Favreau, and he asks Monica out on a date. He gives her a $20,000 tip, and she learns that it's not a joke, it's a real tip, and she does end up going out with him. Well, she goes to see him, and once she goes to see him, she kind of, freaks out a bit and says, "What on earth are you doing? Are you trying to buy me?" Which is not what I thought. That wasn't my initial reaction. I don't know if that says more about me or Monica, but then ultimately she agreed to go on a date with him, and basically this is just an episode of Pete flashing his cash. And I won't say any more about Pete as a character, but it's certainly a very, very memorable introduction. We also get our other new character introduced, and this is, of course, Mrs. Knight, or Alice, played by Debra Jo Rupp. Frank has revealed he's getting married to his former home ec teacher, and there is a great age difference between them, and Phoebe also starts freaking out. She's talking to Joey and Ross. Quite peculiar to see Ross sitting in one of the chairs, ostensibly sitting in Chandler's seat, and it's slightly strange, but it works well enough. And Frank is obviously really happy with this, and he's in love, but he's very young and he's not really thought things through. But did that give Phoebe the right to interfere with the situation? No, of course it didn't, because at the end of the day, the age might be great, but it doesn't necessarily mean things won't work out. It doesn't necessarily mean that they shouldn't get married. If they legally can, then Phoebe's not really in a place to stop that. I think her heart was partly coming from the right place, but also I think she was just kind of grossed out by it. Because a big age gap can seem maybe slightly peculiar, particularly if that person has been your teacher. That's a little bit strange. But nevertheless, Frank was very happy, and Alice is a really nice character. I think as this episode progressed, it was really unclear where that part of the story was going. And again, I won't say anything about Alice in future episodes or what happens with the character in the future, but certainly in this episode, it was very unpredictable, and I think definitely raised a lot of different viewpoints and different perspectives. And then, of course, we end with Joey interfering with the hypnosis tape and asks Chandler to buy him a lot of pants, and it's a really good fun way to end things, and it's a very, very memorable episode with some really great introductions to some new characters, and needless to say, it's an episode that I will always enjoy.